Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this introduction to AdGreen. I'm Jo and I'll be leading this session. Let's get started. AdGreen is an organisation offering carbon literacy training, a carbon calculator and reduction resources free at the point of use to enable the advertising production community to measure and reduce their carbon footprint. We believe in helping those working in the industry to understand their impact and in helping them to use the information at their fingertips to make reduction decisions. Our offerings are relevant to advertisers, particularly the procurement, marketing and ad pro teams, production consultancies, advertising agencies, production companies and production service companies, freelance agency and production company staff, and suppliers of other production-related services such as post houses and studios. AdGreen doesn't work on a membership basis. Instead, everyone is welcome to access and use the relevant bits that they need. This is because we're funded by a levy on production spend, and we'll explain more about that later on. I started AdGreen as a grassroots sustainable production project in 2014 when working as a production manager on advertising projects. I saw a huge amount of waste being generated and wanted to do something, so I started by facilitating on-set recycling and encouraging attendees to bring their own reusable water bottles and mugs to cut down on single-use plastic. The response from those on my shoots was positive, and I began to share case studies online and with production friends. Around the same time, I also reached out to BAFTA's Albert team. They support the film and TV industry to reduce the environmental impacts of their broadcast productions. Albert have over a decade of data at their fingertips and lots of interesting insights. Did you know that in 2021, the average CO2 equivalent emissions generated whilst producing 1 hour of television content was 5.7 tonnes. This is nearly half of the average UK citizen's annual footprint, which is around 13 tonnes. During the production of this average hour, most emissions came from people transport and the energy used for the various spaces involved in creating a TV show. A tiny fraction of the total emissions generated were from disposal. Albert's data taught me that recycling on set was a drop in the ocean. And if 5.7 tonnes of CO2 equivalent was being generated per hour of TV, I couldn't imagine what was being generated by each ad break that sat in between. AdGreen really began when I tried to find out. As the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. For example, you wouldn't try to make cost savings without first understanding what you spend. Otherwise, how would you know what success looked like? This statement underpins AdGreen's two aims: enabling the advertising production community to measure carbon emissions and then to reduce them. Historically, this part of the advertising industry hasn't been measuring its impact and in turn hasn't been able to make informed decisions to reduce the emissions generated. In 2020, AdGreen became part of the UK's Advertising Association, and an advisory board was formed made up of key industry players sharing the same vision, including ad agency holding companies, trade bodies and advertisers. Their support enabled AdGreen to fully launch and meant the carbon calculator could be developed. At the same time, a cross-industry group had also been formed to create a strategy to tackle the climate crisis across advertising operations. The resulting strategy is called AdNet Zero. The strategy addresses the full spectrum of emissions from advertising operations, covering 5 areas for action and reduction. Number 1, operational emissions from advertising businesses, which are estimated to be over 1 million tonnes per year. 2, emissions from the production of advertising content. 3, emissions generated from media planning and buying. 4, emissions generated from event production and how awards celebrate the best work. And 5, supporting consumer behaviour change. AdGreen supports those engaging with Action Point 2, reducing the emissions from the production of advertising content. Each action has its own guidance, resources and support to assess and reduce the emissions generated. In order to support the advertising production community, we offer 3 main things: training, a carbon calculator tool, and reduction resources. Training is the first step we recommend, and this session gives you a good foundation. Environmental sustainability is a topic that can often overwhelm us, especially when the average person is just beginning to get carbon literate. We all know champagne costs more than a cup of tea, but what about the carbon impact? We're here to help educate the industry, guiding advertisers, creative agencies and production suppliers as they take their first step into measurement and understanding the implication of each activity they undertake. After training, the next step is to measure. Our carbon calculator tool provides the industry with a way to collaboratively measure and understand the emissions generated by various areas of production, such as travel and transport, the spaces used for filming, accommodation and post-production, the materials used and their disposal. Advertising agencies and production companies, the contributors, input the activity information based on the activities which are in their portion of the production budget. And advertisers, parent companies and production consultants, the reviewers, review the carbon data generated by the tool. The visibility of activity information by all parties involved in a project allows for greater accountability and discussion. Users can make decisions about reduction and prioritise activities with the highest impact. The more completed projects we have in the tool, the more accurate data we'll have on the impact of our sector, and our annual review goes into more detail about the data we have. In addition, organisations using the tool can use their own data as well as industry benchmarks to inform production strategies, policies and schedules. Since the AdGreen Carbon Calculator launched in 2021, the tool has been adopted by numerous brands, production consultants, advertising agencies and production companies around the world. In terms of the tool's methodology, the AdGreen Carbon Calculator has been developed from BAFTA Albert's established online tool. The two tools share the same core calculator functionality, ensuring both the broadcast and advertising industries benefit from upgrades and insight. However, AdGreen's tool has bespoke user types and security rules relevant to the advertising industry's many stakeholders. This also means the tool can flex as needed for contributors working in different ways from one project to another. The methodology of Albert's core calculator is available on our website and includes details of the factors used to calculate the CO2e of each activity added to a project. To ensure the tool accurately captures emissions from locations, studios, offices and hotels around the world, the calculator has a database of over 300 localised electricity emission factors. This means that wherever the space is, the associated carbon will be relative to the average unit of electricity in that region. The next module goes into more detail about the tool, including a walkthrough and some FAQs, the terms we use, how to get set up and navigate the tool, the 4-step process to a completed footprint, and the data you can download. After training and measuring, the next step is to reduce. And we have plenty of online resources to use as you navigate producing fantastic creative work but with a reduced carbon impact. Want to get inspired by other production teams? Check out the case studies. Have a question? Read through the FAQs. Do you want to know more about the tool? Download the Quick Start Guide and watch the how-to videos. There are also downloadable templates and a guide covering things each department can do to reduce emissions. On top of this, the website includes details of upcoming events so that you can be part of our growing community. And don't forget to join the mailing list to get new updates first. As part of our resources, we also offer guidance on offsetting. Once a project has been measured and everything possible done to reduce, you may want to offset the remainder of the emissions. A carbon offset is a reduction or removal of CO2e to compensate for CO2e emitted elsewhere. By using the AdGreen Carbon Calculator early on in pre-production, users can predict the final carbon impact. As soon as one activity is added to the project, the total CO2e is displayed, along with the cost to offset via our offsetting partner, Ecology. Whilst there's no obligation to use Ecology, the offset cost shown enables users to allocate money in the production budget for offsetting. And bonus, any reductions you make in the meantime will mean the total CO2e and therefore offset cost will go down. And just a quick note here, AdGreen don't receive any of the money spent on offsetting. Should you choose to use our offsetting partner, all funds go directly to Ecology. We are also often asked about certification of footprints. Certification is already provided by BAFTA's Albert for broadcast projects. It helps users focus their reduction efforts and celebrates the great work they're doing. It also gives them a chance to demonstrate their commitment to reduction by providing a badge which can be used on the end credits of broadcast productions. Albert certification is achieved by answering a number of questions and providing evidence of reduction. Some broadcasters have now made this mandatory for content they're purchasing and commissioning. We're considering something similar for those who are working with the AdGreen carbon calculator, although the design will need to be adapted to suit the industry's structure and the considerably shorter timescales which production teams are working with. You can sign up to the newsletter for the latest news on certification. You might be wondering whether you can access the training, tool and resources free at the point of use from anywhere. The answer is yes. Currently we have support teams in both the UK and the Netherlands, and we're looking at expanding our levy scheme, which we'll talk about in a bit, to allow us to introduce local support in other key markets soon. You'll find more details about our local teams on our website. In our next session, we'll go into more detail on the benefits of all of this for your organisation. Broadly speaking, these are generating business, saving money, improving company culture and retention, and getting ahead of regulation. Let's briefly talk about the last one a little more now. Many organisations are already engaged with their own carbon reduction targets. Whilst advertising production may be a small piece of the overall emissions pie for some advertisers, it's still part of the overall picture. It's very likely we'll also see mandatory Scope 3 reporting as well as Scopes 1 and 2 for more and more organisations, so getting involved in carbon calculation now will help the community get prepared. We can already imagine a future where those servicing the advertisers are working to a carbon budget as well as a financial one, and like the broadcasters requiring Albert certification, advertisers may require evidence of measurement and reduction from their production suppliers. As carbon literacy across the advertising production community increases, reduction conversations will become more commonplace, and more demand for sustainable products and services should also result in more supply. Reduction opportunities for production teams will increase with cleaner power generation technologies, more studios running on renewable energy, and bigger networks of electric vehicle charging points. How much influence do you think you can have? We understand you can only do so much as an individual. To tackle the climate crisis, we need to come together to share our knowledge and create viable solutions. According to BAFTA's Albert, the average TV production manager can only remove 15 to 20% of the emissions from a production's carbon footprint. This is for two reasons. First, the availability of green suppliers, like studios running on 100% renewable energy, and second, creative decisions such as requiring a hot sunny beach for a shoot taking place in the winter may mean that carbon is already baked into the script. Depending on your role, you may be able to directly change some things, influence others, and need to resort to offsetting for some unavoidable activities. We need to recognise that in the advertising production industry, we can use our sphere of influence to inspire suppliers and create the demand to make sustainable change happen. We've just talked about an individual's sphere of influence. Now let's look at how the various organisations involved in a typical shoot might contribute to a production's carbon footprint. Just like a budget, various parties are responsible for various parts of the footprint. This is based on a real shoot that took place in Western Europe using a London-based agency and production company and a local service company. It's 4 days long with a mix of location and studio shooting, and the main piece of content being generated is a 60-second TV ad. First, we'll start with the ad agency. They have 9 agency members and 4 clients taking short-haul return flights in Europe in economy class. They also have 1 cast member and their team of 4 flying in from the US to join the production, flying business. Between them, they book 65 nights in a mid-scale hotel, spend 5 days in the edit and 15 days in post in non-renewably powered spaces. Their total footprint for the shoot is 54.16 tonnes of CO2e. Next, we have the production company. They paid for 6 short-haul return flights to Europe for production and a few heads of department. However, the director is flying in from Canada to meet the team in London first, before flying to Europe for the shoot, and then back to Canada. They also spend £1,120 on taxis and book in a total of 92 nights in a mid-scale hotel. Their total footprint is 9.11 tonnes of CO2e, almost a sixth of the emissions generated by the agency's activities. Finally, we have the service company. They have the activities we might typically think of as the shoot, or the on-the-ground part of the production. This includes vans and cars to transport items, crew and visitors, 4 days in the studio, fuel purchase for a location generator, and the disposal of waste and materials purchased. Their footprint is much smaller at 1.81 tonnes of CO2e. This slide shows you the breakdown of this particular project, just as you'd see in our carbon calculator, which we'll show you in future modules. In this instance, we can clearly see the agency's activities had the largest impact, and we can see the majority of the footprint is travel and transport, which in this case is made up almost entirely of flights. If the carbon calculator had been used at script stage to estimate the CO2e which would be emitted as a result of the production, it might have prompted a conversation around how many agency members and clients needed to attend, where the shoot should be, where the director could be based, and whether more local talent could be considered. In total, this project comes in at just over 65 tonnes of CO2e, and this is for 60 seconds worth of content. If we compare that to BAFTA Albert's average of 5.7 tonnes of CO2e for an hour of broadcast television, it gives us some idea of the impact that some advertising projects have in comparison to the content that they sit between. As you already know, we offer training, the tool and resources free at the point of use. We want to offer help to anyone who wants it for free. To do this, a small voluntary levy on production spend has been introduced, which is paid by advertisers. The AdGreen levy is a recommended 0.25% of the cost to produce an advertising asset. That's just £2.50 per £1,000 spent, and it's capped at £2,500 per production. The levy is added to production cost estimates on relevant items by UK-based principal production partners who have registered with us and invoiced to the advertiser once signed off. The payments are collected on AdGreen's behalf by the PPPs and passed to us on a quarterly basis. In most cases, the PPP will be the advertiser's ad agency, but it could also be a production company working directly with the brand or an in-house agency. If you're an organisation working directly with brands to produce advertising content, you can find out more about registering as a collector of the AdGreen levy in the link in the sidebar. And if you're an advertiser and your principal production partners are using the training, tool and resources provided by AdGreen, it's hoped you'd see fit to contribute to the levy. An AdGreen levy payment is neither a consultation fee nor a payment for the use of the calculator, but a voluntary contribution to fund AdGreen's operating costs. The income received also doesn't go towards any offsetting of production emissions. For this, we suggest using our offsetting partner Ecology, but it's totally up to you. We really value the contribution made by our levy payers and the support of our levy collectors. The funding is vital to enable us to continue offering everything we do free at the point of use. You can find out more about the levy by following the link in the sidebar. In addition to the levy, we also have several industry partners who support us in putting on both online and in-person events. You can find out more about them on the website too.